Hey guys, welcome to another video from Historic Militaria. Today we're going to be looking at the Russian and Soviet Nagant Revolver, which was in use, or actually in production, by the Russians from about 1895 to about 1945, from both Tula and Izhevsk, although Izhevsk only made them for a couple years at the end of World War II, so they're definitely more uncommon to find Izhevsk examples than Tula manufactured examples. They are still in service in some sort of remote corners of the former Soviet Union. I know that the Russian, I believe, postal police actually gave up their Nagants in the mid 2005 to 2010, something like that. And I do believe they're still in service with probably some very small local police departments and security guards and stuff like that. So this revolver is still in active service, which is kind of amazing considering it's over 120 years old, and it would be kind of akin to somebody still using a Colt Peacemaker for security duty. But regardless, it's a very well-designed and very robust revolver for what it is. It's also very unique in that the cartridge, and this is just a commercial specimen. The cartridge actually has the bullet completely contained inside it. So the bullet is inside the cartridge case, and when it's fired, the cartridge case extends, and there is no gap for the gas to actually get out of the revolver cylinder like in most revolvers. The way the gun works is when it's cocked, when you actually cock the gun, which is always interesting to do on these, it actually moves the cylinder forward so that it's against the barrel, and the cartridge case will actually be in there and sealed and make a firm gas seal. And when it goes off, you're not going to lose any gas to the cylinder gap like you would on a normal revolver, which gives it about, I believe, 50 to 75 extra feet per second. So not a great jump, but it is also one of the only revolvers that can be suppressed, if not the only revolver that can be successfully suppressed, because there is no gas that escapes and you can keep everything contained. And there were indeed suppressed revolver examples of this made, but that's sort of beyond the scope of this video. Anyway, to jump right in here, there's two main variants of the Nagant that you're going to come across. This one right here is the more common one that I think most people are going to be familiar with. And this is going to have a sort of matte black finish. And as you can see, this is just a flat black with your Tula star with a 1940 date. The Russians were always really good about dating their equipment, which is nice, with really nice condition wood grips. And your serial number is going to be right here. And as you can see, this one also has the Cyrillic transliterated into English. So you know that this is an imported gun, because Cyrillic has to be translated into English characters for the serial numbers per import regulations. Also, this gun has been refinished. This is an arsenal refinish. This flat black is not what they originally look like. And should come as no surprise, if you look on the barrel, you'll find import marks right there. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the guns that are coming in now, because they are still coming in once in a while, have pretty big import marks on the side. And that's, to me, and I think some other people, it kind of takes away from the guns. Whereas, you know, these earlier imports had a pretty small import mark. But this is the common type that you're going to come across. And these are arsenal refurbs from World War II, which were put away and sort of saved for a rainy day and never got used, and then surplused out in the 1990s to early 2000s. An original Nagant that is not import marked, that is a so-called bringback, is going to have a very shiny, glossy black finish like this one does. And as you can see, that also is a 1940 Tula, and it is just a really, really nice bluing on these, and it's a very deep, shiny bluing. And this is an example of a pre-war gun, so obviously the Soviet Union had not been invaded yet. And you'll also find the grips are a little more finely checkered usually than on your re-imported ones, which kind of have a fish scale type texture to them. Now, some wartime guns are going to have this too, but this is typical of a gun that was made or refurbed after the war. Whereas this is an example of your standard pre-war grips, and just something you kind of want to be on the lookout for. Also, your hammer is going to be nice and fire blued. And we'll cock this one here. And always with the long firing pin that's going to be left in the white. And your trigger also is going to be fire blued. And just all in all, a really nice bluing on it. And of course, no transliteration of the serial number, no import marks, nothing like that. So you know that this one probably came in during Korea or Vietnam as a bringback. I don't really know of any other time that they would have come in. I know that Finland had some of these, but I'm not sure that these were finished surplus or not. So that just kind of gives you an example of one that is not an imported gun. You're also going to find ones more typically that definitely look like they came back from the battlefield, like this guy right here. Sort of a gray, mousy finish. Again, your date of Tula of 1936, and you will find them all the way going back to Imperial Russian dates, certainly, and you'll even find refurbed ones going back to Imperial Russian dates. They just, whatever they had in inventory, they refurbed them regardless of year. So this is more typical of what you're going to see. Again, though, no imports. Your bluing is going to be pretty faded. This is definitely just a good example of a battle-worn one. Again, where it came from, sort of anybody's guess, but your grips are pretty worn. They've definitely been handled quite a bit. But your typical earlier finely checked wood grips. And this is another example of one that was actually reblued, but I really don't know who did it, but they did a really good job. But I just want to point out that I have seen a lot of these very nicely reblued ones. These are not imported guns. They don't have any English transliterations on the Cyrillic characters. But the bluing is definitely not an original blue from the factory. This is a 1940 Tula with a hammer that's been polished to be in the white, whereas, as you can see, an original hammer would be fire blued and have some fire blue on it. This one is bright, and also just in general, the bluing is much more shiny, and it's easy to tell, certainly in different lighting, when you look at an original versus this one. It's obvious that this guy's been reblued. So you may come across one of these. Again, I'm not sure who did this. I'm not sure if it's an American who had some of these and would reblue them, but I've seen so many, it makes me almost think that it might have been another country that was using them and actually Arsenal refurbished them. But I do wonder why the hammers are in the white. Your other small parts have been polished. Your trigger has been left blued, but certainly the ejector rod is in the white too. And it just seems like these were almost, I don't want to say presentation guns, but somebody put a lot of trouble into making them look really good. And they came into the United States quite some time ago, since they are not refurbed and they're not import marked. But just to give you a brief overview of how the Nagant works, it is generally a single or double action revolver. There are examples that are single action only, and those would be the the so-called privates model. They were cheaper to make, and they were basically a World War I gun. So most that you're going to find, certainly the later ones, are going to be single or double action, which means you can pull it through or cock it and fire it. Your trigger pull on the double action is going to be about 20 pounds, and on a single action is going to be about 12 pounds. So it's not a particularly pleasant gun to shoot. I mean, you got to give that some heft to make it go. To load them, you have your loading gate right here, and you just pop that open, pop it down, and then you just can actually load the rounds individually into the chamber. And again, it holds 7 rounds, and then you would just close it up and you would be good to go. To eject your spent shells, you actually have to pull this rod. So you actually have to turn it and then pull it out, and then you're going to pull it out all the way. That helps. And then do that, and then you're going to punch out each individual round, which is not something what I'd want to do in combat, considering also the fact that by the 1880s and 90s, people had swing out cylinders. Webley had the top brake, which would eject all the rounds at one time. There were some really good examples. I'm really not sure why they went with the really horrible ejection method in this case for an otherwise decent revolver, but it loads or unloads quite slowly, and then reloading it again is a slow task. But I just wanted to give you a overview of some of the Nagants that you may come across in your collecting career. And again, this being the refurbed and most common one with the import marks, they're readily available, but they are drying up. So if you were thinking of getting a Nagant, now would be probably a good time to get one of the refurbed ones before they disappear completely. And if you are looking for some of the non-import marked ones, they do seem to be drying up. And while they come up for sale on a regular basis, you definitely might want to consider getting one now rather than later, because they certainly are not making more. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll be doing more interesting videos on all kinds of cool militaria. So remember to like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff, and thanks for watching.